I was working the graveyard shift at a small, run-down motel on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet night, the kind where the silence is so heavy it seems to press down on you like a physical weight. The only sound was the occasional creak of the old building settling or the distant hum of the highway. I was at the front desk, half asleep, when I heard it. It was a soft, almost imperceptible scratching coming from one of the rooms. At first I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the usual creaks and groans of the old building. But the noise persisted, growing louder and more insistent. It sounded like something was being dragged across the floor. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I picked up the phone and dialed the room number. No answer. I tried again, but still nothing. My heart was pounding in my chest as I grabbed the master key and made my way down the dimly lit hallway. The closer I got to the room, the louder the scratching became. It was a sound that chilled me to the bone. I stood outside the door, my hand shaking as I reached for the handle. I took a deep breath and unlocked the door, pushing it open slowly. The room was dark, the only light coming from the hallway behind me. I reached for the light switch, but before I could flip it, I heard a voice. "Don't turn on the light," it said. It was a low, guttural whisper that sent shivers down my spine. I froze, my hand hovering over the switch. "Who's there?" I managed to say, my voice trembling. There was no response, but the scratching sound had stopped. I just stood there in the darkness, my heart beating so fast I could feel it in my throat. And then I heard it, a soft, almost inaudible giggle. I turned and ran, not daring to look back. I locked myself in the office and called the police. They arrived quickly, but when they searched the room, there was nothing there. No sign of any disturbance, no evidence of anyone having been there at all. The next day I quit my job at the motel. I never found out what made that noise, or who was in that room. But I know what I heard, and I know what I felt. It was a darkness that I never want to experience again. It was a cold, dreary night during the graveyard shift at the hospital. I was a nurse in the psychiatric ward, a place where the walls seemed to whisper secrets and the air was heavy with the weight of troubled minds. I'd been on the night shift for a few months now, and the routine had become second nature. But that night, something was different. The darkness seemed to cling to me like a shroud, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I was checking on the patients when I heard a soft knock on the door. I turned to see a young woman standing there, her eyes wide with fear. She was new to the ward, and her delicate features were etched with the scars of a life lived in chaos. "Can I help you?" I asked gently. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to talk to someone. I'm scared." I led her to a quiet room and sat down across from her. She told me a harrowing tale of abuse and neglect, of a childhood stolen by the very people who were supposed to protect her. My heart ached for her, and I did my best to offer comfort and understanding. As the night wore on, the shadows seemed to grow darker, and the air grew colder. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I tried to focus on the young woman, but my eyes kept darting to the corners of the room, where the darkness seemed to be gathering. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. I heard the young woman gasp, and I reached out to take her hand. "It's okay," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "The power must have gone out. I'll go and see if I can find a flashlight." I stood up and made my way to the door, feeling my way along the wall. As I reached for the handle, I felt something brush against my arm. I recoiled in horror, my heart pounding in my chest. I fumbled for the handle and yanked the door open, stumbling out into the hallway. Unfortunately, the darkness was absolute, and I could hear the sound of my own breath echoing in my ears. I could feel the presence of something malevolent, something that was watching me with eyes that burned in the darkness. I ran down the hall, my footsteps echoing in the silence. I finally found a flashlight and made my way back to the room, my heart still racing. The young woman was huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. I shone the light around the room, but there was nothing there. The rest of the night passed in a blur of fear and uncertainty. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something was waiting in the shadows for us. When the sun finally rose, I breathed a sigh of relief, but the memory of that night stayed with me, a dark stain on my soul. I never found out what happened that night, but I know one thing for certain. The darkness holds secrets that are best left undisturbed, and some things are better left unknown. I work the night shift on an orange duck farm. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. The farm is nestled in a quiet valley, far from the hustle and bustle of city life. The ducks are a strange breed, their feathers a vibrant orange hue that seems to glow in the moonlight. I've always found them unsettling, but they're just ducks, right? Tonight, though, something feels off. The usual calm of the farm is replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the distant hoots of an owl. I try to shake off the feeling, focusing on my tasks. I make my rounds, checking the feed, the water, the fences. Everything seems in order, yet the feeling of unease persists. As I'm walking back to the main building, I hear a noise. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but it's there. I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. It sounds like a voice, but not quite. It's more like a whisper, a sibilant hiss that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I tell myself it's nothing, just the wind playing tricks on me. But as I continue towards the main building, the whispers grow louder, more insistent. I can't make out the words, but the tone is clear. It's some kind of warning. I break into a run, the whispers chasing me all the way to the door. I fumble with the keys, my hand shaking, and finally manage to unlock it. I slam the door behind me and lean against it, panting. The whispers stop, but the silence is almost worse. I make my way to the office, my eyes darting around, searching for any sign of movement. The room is empty, the only sound the hum of the computer. I sit down and try to focus on my work, but my mind is racing. What was that voice? What did it want? Hours pass, and the whispers don't return. I start to relax, convincing myself that it was just my imagination. But then, as I'm about to leave, I hear it again. This time it's coming from the office. I turn around, and there in the corner is a figure. It's cloaked in shadow, but I can see its eyes, glowing a bright, unnatural orange. The figure speaks, its voice a twisted, guttural version of the whispers I've been hearing. "You're not supposed to be here," it says. "You're not one of us." And then, in a flash of feathers and fury, the figure is gone, leaving me alone in the darkness. I stumble out of the office, out of the building, and into the night. I don't look back, but I can feel the orange duck farm watching me, waiting for me to return.